Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. I would ask for a procedural motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the October 16th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. Question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question with respect to an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. Members have been granted the opportunity to attend electronically, but I'm happy to say we're all here in the flesh tonight. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have a fairly substantial list tonight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. There are a number of items this evening. First off, for agenda item 8A, we're adding a PowerPoint presentation titled Approval Process Improvements Update, and that's for the presentation by Darren Moss and Jeremy Holm. For agenda item 8B, Rob Turnbull, President and Chief Executive Officer of Street to Home Foundation, and Dave Hammond, prominent member of the business community, we're adding a PowerPoint presentation titled Street to Home, Strengthening the Stool Towards Greater Outcomes. For agenda item 12G, rezoning application number RA461 for 1100 Cedar Road, 1505 and 1605 Fielding Road, and 1750 Regina Way, Sandstone, otherwise known as Sandstone. We're adding a delegation from Georgia Desjardins and Tanisha Avertse from Key Corp Consulting Ltd. on behalf of Seacliff Properties Ltd. And for agenda item 13A, zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2022, number 4500.204. We're adding correspondence dated October 13th, 2023 from Deputy Minister Tom McCarthy, Council's consideration of rezoning application number RA475, and correspondence dated October 16th from Jeff Plant from Galeg Grant Zwack LP regarding rezoning application number RA475. Apologies if I've mispronounced those names. We're also adding correspondence 15B dated October 6, 2023 from Carmen LeBlanc, Fortis BC, regarding support for emissions reduction and access to low carbon energy like renewable natural gas from the CRD's Heartland landfill. We're adding agenda item 15C, correspondence dated 2023, October 6th, from Mayor Krogh regarding letter of support for Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society, and correspondence dated October 12th, 2023, from Marilyn St. Clair, Discovery Community College, Rediscovery Community College Healthcare Assistant Program. And that's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. I have a number of items tonight in the Mayor's report, so bear with me. The first is that I want to advise, reporting from the Council meeting earlier tonight, that Council will be issuing a statement with respect to the recent demonstration and counter-demonstration around the teaching of the SOGI program in our local school system. In addition, we will be raising a flag in a couple of days at City Hall as well to show support for those in our community who feel that they have been the subject of hate or violence over time. I have some very basic announcements. The first is the news release, which I want to emphasize, the alternative approval process for Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 runs from September 27th to Friday, November the 3rd, and it is to gain permission from the residents of Nanaimo to borrow an amount not to exceed $48,500,000 to finance the construction of Phase 1 of the Operations Center. In an election, each eligible voter is entitled to one response. Completed forms have to be dropped off or mailed to City Hall by 4:30 p.m. on Friday, November the 3rd. We're calling on all artists. The City of Nanaimo is seeking artists for our urban design roster. We're inviting all established artists and designers from across British Columbia to submit portfolios to the 2024-2026 Urban Design Roster Program. This was launched in 2021 and has enjoyed great success, offering designers and artists an opportunity to be involved in civic urban design and small-scale artwork related to city infrastructure. The deadline is Monday, November the 13th at 4 p.m. You can view the application details and requirements on the city's website. I won't bother read it all out. Go to the city website. Those of you who can understand that are much cleverer than I am. We, City Council, a number of members, not including myself, attended UBCM, and sadly, I might say many came home with COVID. It appeared to be a bit of a super spreader event. But at the UBCM meeting, Council advocated for Nanaimo, had a number of very positive meetings with various cabinet ministers and the Premier, and the city brought forward a resolution on appropriate resourcing of emergency warming shelters that was endorsed by the UBCM. Council met with Premier Eby, Minister of Health Adrian Dix, Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General Mike Farnworth, Minister of Mental Health and Addictions Jennifer Whiteside, and Island Health as well. The topics discussed, I think, are fairly obvious given the concerns of the community. They included public safety, the 2019 Memorandum of Understanding with BC Housing, expansion plans for Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, and the critical need for shelter spaces in Nanaimo. In addition, staff met with representatives from the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation and the Ministry of Transportation. The city has also allocated $1.8 million from the we received from Public Safety Canada through the Building Safer Communities Fund to develop and implement a strategic plan to address gun and gang violence. The Nanaimo Youth Resilience Strategy outlines focus areas to prevent youth from engaging in gun and gang violence and includes the creation of safe youth gathering spaces, youth outreach, connecting youth to the land, and youth mentoring, enhancing existing programs in media and communications to address discrimination and stigma against youth. And again, we are extremely grateful to the federal government who provided all the funding of $1.8 million. For those of you who are athletic, and for those of you who want to become athletic, the City of Nanaimo is very pleased to welcome the Go by Bike Week event back to Nanaimo for the fall season. You can register to enter the contest to win prizes, attend events, reduce emissions, and save fuel from October 16th to 29th. Celebration stations will be set up at various locations hosted by many gracious sponsors during the week, and participants can plan their bike routes accordingly to stop at the stations and enter to win prizes. An updated digital cycling map will be available to assist with route planning. Numerous events are planned, including October the 16th from 7 to 9 a.m. Metro Drive at Moss Star Road, October 18th 4 to 6 p.m. the Steve Smith Bike Park at the upper parking lot, October 20th 4 to 6 Front Street across from the Port Theatre, October 21st 12 to 4 Vancouver Island University at the Discovery Fest in the Quad, October 23rd 4 to 6 at the Parkway Trail at Tourism Nanaimo, October 25th, 4 to 6, E&N at Giggleswick's Place across from Brooks Landing, and finally on October 27th, 4 to 6 at the Rotary Fieldhouse. In addition, there will be a wrap-up with the Bicycle Film Festival, which will take place on November 9th from 6 to 9 at VIU's Malaspina Theatre. Proud to announce that Reimagine Nanaimo, the process which based on statistics, some of you participated in, indeed the largest portion of citizens in this community's history participated in that engagement process that led to the city's new official community plan called City Plan Nanaimo Reimagined, has now been recognized for the way it encouraged residents to participate from 2019 to 2022. The city received the Visual Engagement Award at the International Association of Public Participation's Core Values Awards. This award was presented at the recent IAP2 North American Conference in Seattle, Washington. Working with Lanark, a local planning engagement firm, the city used very effective branding, highly visual engagement tools such as social media videos, creative community contests to share feedback using art and poetry and virtual meetings. So a feather in the city's cap, and I want to express again my thanks to all the staff involved, and Lisa Bhopal Singh, who's no longer with us, who has gone on, having been poached by the city of Powell River, to be their new CAO. Not that we're mad about that. The city is seeking applications for the 2024 social planning grants beginning October 16th. It will be accepting applications for the 2024 social planning grant program. A total of $85,000 is available under two separate grant categories: Community Vitality Grants and Social Response Grants. Community Vitality Grants are intended to support small projects with a total budget of typically less than $5,000. Social Response Grants are intended to support larger initiatives. Total funding available for each grant is as follows: Community Vitality, $25,000, and Social Response Grants, $60,000. And I'm going to conclude tonight with sincere appreciation and express admiration to staff of this city. Firstly, on Friday, to outline what the circumstances involved, on Friday, September the 8th, a patron experienced a medical emergency in the pool that required staff to both rescue and provide resuscitation measures. The staff's knowledge, skill, and timely response provided an opportunity for the individual to receive advanced medical care at NRGH and further medical treatment in Victoria. As a result of their efforts, the 7 members of the City of Nanaimo lifeguard team, one of whom is with us here tonight, who was present and received a letter of recommendation and commendation, all those involved were recognized by the BC Emergency Health Services for their significant contributions made during the medical emergency and the positive impact early interventions had on the patient's outcome. I can tell you that on Wednesday, October the 11th, Councillor Perino and myself were able to attend a small ceremony at Bevan Park when a senior member of the British Columbia Emergency Health Services delivered letters of commendation to the following city staff members: Nina Carroll, Matthew Copeland, Madeline Tate, Mackenzie Muratroyd, Ethan Johnson, Killian Allard, and Kian Nowicki. This program is in place to recognize the life-saving efforts of individuals and to educate the public on the importance of early CPR. I can tell you that it was a very touching moment to see that gentleman there, together with his family and 2 very grateful daughters and grandchildren. Quite frankly, he was pulled back from what I often refer to as God's waiting room by the staff of this city and those who followed to ensure that he received the medical care he needed in a timely way. So there is one very happy family in the city of Nanaimo who nearly lost a husband, father, and grandfather. And finally, one more. We received a letter, I guess I can say we received a letter from Ted Swaby. I don't think he won't be embarrassed by that, former city employee. And I'm just going to read out what he had to say because it expresses so well what he felt for this young woman, Paris Chadwick, who's with us tonight. I'm writing to express my heartfelt appreciation for the extraordinary act of kindness and compassion displayed by one of your dedicated employees, Paris Chadwick, in the morning of August 25th. This remarkable individual's actions have left an indelible impression on me and reaffirmed my faith in the empathy and compassion of our community's leaders, particularly the younger generation. On that morning, while I was out for my daily walk, I came upon Paris, who had pulled over to the side of the road. She was tending to a homeless person who had been subjected to a brutal assault by 3 youths and had been bear sprayed. The circumstances were both disturbing and heartbreaking, and it was clear that this individual was in immediate need of assistance. Paris's response to this situation was nothing short of exceptional. Her actions were a testament to her humanity and her unwavering commitment to the well-being of our community's most vulnerable members. Despite the potential inconvenience to her own schedule and the demands of her role, she did not hesitate to step in and offer help. Utilizing her first aid training and evident interpersonal skills, Paris displayed extraordinary empathy and humanity towards the homeless person in distress. She not only tended to their physical injuries, but also provided emotional support during a time of great distress and disorientation. Her ability to connect with someone in such dire circumstances, offering solace and reassurance, showcased her exceptional character and values. That morning, Paris's actions served as a powerful reminder of the human side of our community's challenges, including mental health issues, addiction, and homelessness. In a world that sometimes feels jaded and frustrated with these complex issues, her selfless act was a beacon of hope. It underscored the importance of compassion and care in addressing these challenges and reaffirmed the values we should hold dear in our community. I want to emphasize that Paris's actions on that day went far beyond the call of duty. Her kindness and empathy were exemplary, and they set a high standard for what we should expect from our community leaders. Her dedication to making a positive impact in our community is truly commendable. I sincerely hope you take a moment to recognize Paris's exceptional compassion and leadership. Her actions serve as a source of hope for our future leaders and a reminder that small acts of kindness can have a profound impact. We are indeed fortunate to have her as part of her as part of your organization, our community. Thank you for your attention to this commendable act, and please extend my gratitude to Paris for her remarkable display of compassion and humanity. And you know, one has to be very careful about mentioning religion in the modern world without wishing to offend anybody, but surely the parable of the Good Samaritan applies here if you know your biblical passages at all. Paris was the Good Samaritan. So Paris, if I could, I'd simply ask you to come down here and let me shake your hand in front of council and let the public see your face and appreciate what a fine young woman you are and how gracious you've been. Councillor Perino just commented, I don't know if you could hear it, that was a good one. Tonight, with the recognition of staff of the city, it's a reminder to all of us that, as Mr. Swaby put it, in a jaded world, there is still goodness. Rise and report, Ms. Gurry, I don't think we have anything to rise and report on other than that. I've already mentioned the
Yes, not this
statement.
evening, Your Worship.
Very good. The next, we're on to presentations. The first is Darren Moss, Nanawa Development Group, and Jeremy Holm, Director of Planning and Development, Reapprovals Process Improvements Update. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome. And to Mr. Moss, welcome back again.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. And I'm here with, we all know Darren Moss, and he's obviously a representative in the development community, but in this case, we're wearing hats of the co-chairs of our Joint Building Permit Advisory Working Group. So it's a working group of industry and city representatives that are working together collaboratively to make improvements to our development approval processes. So we're here to tell you a little bit, hopefully give a quick update on some important initiatives here, and I'll quickly turn it over to Darren, but we have a number of initiatives and we've put those under the umbrella of approval process improvements updates. So the, just trying to advance the slide here.
Yeah, we talked about that. There we go.
Oh, there we go, thanks. Thank you. So the building permit function review, I think Council's familiar with, approved in April of 2021. A number of recommendations included the formulation of the Joint Building Permit Advisory Working Group, which Darren and I are co-chair of, 5 industry representatives, 5 staff representatives, and we work on improvements, recommending improvements to development approval process. One of those, just to highlight, fast track building permit program was recommended by the group and implemented last year. We're here to talk about a few additional improvements that we're working on, targeting improvements to complex building permit approvals. And I'll turn it over to Darren now to talk about the intake enhancements and process improvements that we're recommending towards those processes.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. Mr. Moss, please.
Thank you, Jeremy. So working together over the last couple of years has been a wonderfully collaborative experience. As we know, building permits are a challenge in most municipalities right now. And as we dug into it in our city, we learned that there's quite a bit of tension that builds up over time between development community and staff whose job is to protect the public safety. And so what I've enjoyed most about this community as we work through the working group is we've been able to address some of that and work through solutions that we believe will help bring those two closer together after multiple years of growing further apart. So as we work through that, these will seem like fairly small changes but we believe they'll have some fairly meaningful impact. So one of the challenges that staff faces with building permits on complex buildings is a review requires a very complete package. So they're complex for a reason, and it's a coordinated effort between multiple disciplines of professional engineers and architects and other planners. And over the years, I think they've seen a degradation of that. And so applications come in that aren't complete, haven't considered bylaws, and that causes a long delay and a huge demand on staff's time to try to put them back together with the consulting team and the applicant. The reason for that is as permit times get longer and longer and longer, everybody wants to get in the queue. And so both sides have a role to play in this, and both sides have a role to fix it. To address that, we're going to be recommending a few changes. One is the complex building permit process will become a two-gate process. So first application will be received, and it will be reviewed for completeness in a fairly timely manner, and then it will either be rejected or it will be accepted as a complete application. This is an important step so that we can make best use of staff's time, and it has the added benefit of complete drawings have less errors, and so it works better for the construction of buildings on site as well. To facilitate the review of critical information, we have formalized our expectations from the city's point of view. We've put together a very detailed guide to building permit applications and what's expected to be conveyed and how it's to be conveyed. We've tried to do that in such a way that industry doesn't have to put a lot of extra effort into the application process, but can convey this information graphically through a different code analysis form and different safety plans and code and safety plans that will be coming out. So the intent is to standardize how information is conveyed so that staff can also review and confirm that the coordinated package is complete and correct in a more timely manner. On the staff side, one of the big challenges we had is, again, because things don't go as quickly as the development side would like, or probably staff as well, planning is one stop on the process, and then building permits a more technical stop along that process. Quite often what happens is as we do our development permit, a lot of time passes between that and the building permit application. A lot of technical constraints on the project are realized, adjustments are made, some of them not necessarily reflecting the full DP package. And so then we end up in this cycle again where building permit staff is trying to review a project that doesn't conform with the requirements of the development permit. So there's now a DP checklist, a development permit checklist that the applicant will fill out to confirm what areas, if any, don't conform and why, so that it's a much more transparent process as to why that has happened. The occupancy code and safety drawing, that's really a graphical way of representing what is truly important to the plan checkers rather than having to sift through different drawings to find that. So again, to speed up that process. Staff has also worked on a first pass checklist for internal use, just to make sure that there's a consistency among staff members and a training program to help staff members really key in on what's really important for that first process review. So that two-gate process we talked about is that completeness review. Staff is committing to a 3-week turnaround on the initial review process. Important to realize that that isn't issuance of a building permit. That's acceptance that this building permit meets our requirements and is complete enough that we can review it efficiently. Given what's coming up this year or early in the spring with a code change, we have decided as a group to recommend a phased approach to this implementation. The first phase will be all the new requirements will be published and available, and new permits will be required to be submitted in alignment with those new forms and requirements, but there won't be a hard 2-gate process to start with. It is a fair amount of change for the development and consulting industry to pick up and understand, and so we want to give time for that to be a success rather than to be seen as an obstruction. So in discussions at our working group, we wanted to make sure that was a collaborative soft start, and then in the spring of next year, we'll transition to it being a hard two-gate process and giving staff the authority and the ability to turn away incomplete packages. So in the interest of Mayor's request, this one we're going to move through quite quickly. As we work through other pieces, civil design, when it comes to a technical building permit of a complex building, has multiple stages. There's the definition of the global context as far as streetscape and entry points and major utilities. There's also a lot of coordination with outside parties like TELUS, Shaw, and other utilities. What is going to come in the next phase of this project is where engineering staff has worked with us to come up with an idea to phase that DSA, or design stage acceptance portion, so that construction on site can begin rather than being held back by other outside parties. So again, gaining multiple months in that process is the hope. There's also many other approvals that can happen during a building permit process. So as we work through this implementation, whether it's fire department or other health or other pieces, we're going to be watching to see if we can improve those timelines as well. So the hope is that this fall, or November 15th, we will be phasing phase one. So those documents will be online, and we'll be asking applicants to submit with those new application requirements. And then spring next year, we'll make it the full two-gate process. This one's not on the slide, but it's an important one from the committee. So I'm going to just put it out there that all these are good steps and important steps to implement, to require and demand better application packages so that staff can regain their confidence and speed up their review process. That only works if there's enough staff there to do it. Talking and watching the amount of demand on staff time, this is not necessarily a full committee recommendation or thought, but we have some very tired staff working very hard. And even if we work to improve those processes, we need to make sure there's some resiliency in the staff. So that'll come forward again as we move into the next slide, but that's something I thought was important to say. So thank you, and over to Jeremy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holm.
Yeah, thank you, and to Darren, appreciate all the input, especially, the working group overall, but I have to give some credit to Darren and David Poiron for extra effort in working through some of these really detailed improvements with staff, and we couldn't have done it without the involvement and input from industry, so it's very helpful and appreciated. This is, so shifting gears here, this is development approval process review. So this is an item that we currently have underway. Consultant was engaged in June of this year. This is sort of focused on the planning functions, the pre-building permit approvals, so rezoning, OCP rezoning, development permit, subdivision. We have a best practices review underway. The consultant's undertaken a number of interviews, both staff and development industry reps. There's a development industry workshop coming up to check on what they heard from industry and whether or not recommendations drafted might address industry's concerns or comments. And then there would be a governance and priorities committee presentation scheduled at this point for November, tentatively scheduled for November at this point. So the consultant's working away on that, recommendations for improvements to planning processes as well. So an important piece, and that was grant funded also by the provincial government. Another piece that's underway is another significant amount of effort being put into our replacement of our legacy software, development approval software system. I'm calling it development approval software and portal. Key focus is improved customer experience. So right now, we don't have a proper online portal as many users' online experience is expected. We can't provide that through our current software system. We're looking at replacing our current software system. We've selected Clarity as the platform. It's a cloud-based solution. Our IT department has been critical in providing leadership and input into working through that. Again, we're recommending a staged implementation here, soft launch as early as November, December 2023. That's going to be focused on the complex building permit projects. all areas of approval related to the complex project. So that's largely new development, the new housing, the big projects that you see going on around the community. We're looking for a number of outcomes: improved customer experience, transparency, accountability, coordination, and completeness of applications. So it dovetails well with some of the improvements that Darren mentioned. And then further expansion of the hard launch, I'm calling phase 2, would be the remaining permit types. And there's going to be a lot of work in 2024 required to make that happen, but we're committed to that. Another area actually that came up through the building permit function review was not recommended at the time, but we've since done, as the working group, done a bit of investigation into this. There's a certified professional program that's overseen by EGBC, the Engineers and Geoscientists of BC, and the Architectural Institute of BC. They manage a program, and it provides additional level of assurance, certified professionals, so training through and certification through the organization. They provide a greater role in oversight and coordination of projects, and this is especially suited for complex, large, multi-phase projects, and does provide for staged permitting. Another thing that is important with those large, complex projects. So it's another layer of professional oversight and coordination, and it would require bylaw amendments, building bylaw amendments that we anticipate bringing forward as early as November to enact that program. It's going to be, there will be likely limited uptake originally, but it will help on larger complex projects. There's a bit of a capacity challenge in the number of professionals available to provide the oversight and the scale of projects that it would benefit. But there's definitely benefit for VIU, the student housing project, for instance. The Nanaimo Correctional Center would have been a project that could have benefited from that, as well as we see upcoming projects at Nanaimo Regional General Hospital that could benefit from this as well, and possibly private projects as well of significant scale. And that's the extent of the presentation. There are a number of other initiatives underway, but we tried to highlight the most impactful and present them in a coordinated way. So any questions? Happy to take those.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you very quickly. Just want to say, first of all, thank you so much. It's this fantastic news, because if there's one thing we've heard over the years, it's, how do we speed up the process and make it more efficient, particularly for those developers who've been with us for many years, and it's like they have to go through this processes all the time. So I just wondered, Mr. Holmes, what do you need from council at this point? Or is it just that you'll move it forward into the next stage, or I just wanted to hear what the next stage is?
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. I mean, at this point, just your continued support.
Absolutely.
We'll be coming back with, I mentioned, bylaw amendments related to the certified professional program, and we'll be bringing forward business plans for next year as well that support some of these initiatives carrying on. So.
And just want to say too that Mr. Moss doing this in your spare time, as if you had any, it's marvelous. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Holm and Mr. Moss. Please give the thanks to the committee and all those that are putting their efforts in. I think there was some of the really concurrent processes are not letting elements hold up. I think makes a lot of sense. But one thing I do have a question on was that I think one of the first slides had some new forms and updated forms, and then also the comment around staff capacity. And I have to ask the question, is additional forms just another item that might create back and forth in that system of incompleteness and another entry point for that type of conversation?
Honest answer is we hope not. We basically took forms that were the traditional building permit form that you'd be familiar with, and we changed the style of input. So basically it's a checklist that requires the applicant to acknowledge all the code requirements, but it's not a difficult process to do that, and the way that information is conveyed has been consolidated into schedules and graphics. So the checklist cross-references how that information gets conveyed. So it's not actually saying this is on page 7, this is on page 3. It's standardizing how that information is to be conveyed in tables and graphics.
Okay.
So an adjustment, yes, but should be less work for the industry once they get used to how to do it, or we get used to how we do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Following up on Councillor Brown's question, I understand this is a working group of 5 industry folks and 5 staff. Have we gone out to the broader community with these? Have we checked in?
Timely question, yes, as of like today.
Today,
So-
great.
We have involved multiple people in the discussion as we develop the forums and the standards. But we put the forums out for some soft input from 3 or 4 coordinating professionals this week. So we should have that back in the next week or 2, incorporate that for the soft launch of November 15th.
Great.
And thank you. Maybe I'll add through your worship too to Councillor Hammond's question. So that's part of the idea behind the soft launch is we'll be able to adjust before we, get ruthless with whether or not applications are complete. So we need to get feedback from industry and really adjust accordingly and make sure that it's working for them.
Thank you. And another question. When, following up on Councillor Perino's comment, we often hear about permitting processing times as a real stumbling block for developers. And I've been speaking with a lot of developers lately around affordable housing. And if we can do this well, this will create more affordable housing in the community. So when would you anticipate to see the fruits of your labors here? When will we anticipate lower permitting times?
Yeah, through your worship, I would say, as soon as if we're effective in implementing it and industry is taking it up, we'll see much more complete coordinated applications. There's a lot of time spent, and it's really working more efficiently with industry because, industry, obviously, professionals are overtaxed and many at capacity now as well. So we want to make sure that we have those complete applications, they're well coordinated, and then it'll save time on both sides. We should see those impacts very shortly after it's implemented.
Fantastic. And one more, if I may. Thank you very much for all of your work. Sorry, I just want to confirm, Mr. Holmes, that we will see a business case coming forward in the budget for increased staff resources to debate. Is that accurate?
We haven't put forward a business case at this point. Sorry, I meant business plans. You'll see support for business plans in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Confirming that then this is not a budget decision for us come November? Not in staff plans to come forward as a budget
That's correct.
decision? Okay.
Yeah, to be clear, this is a working group, not staff. So if working group makes a recommendation, staff still needs to consider it and build it into that. Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. Maybe I'll add through your worship as well. As I mentioned, there is a development approval process review, the consulting work that's underway as well, and we don't know yet what the recommendations will be there, but there will be discussion, presentation at GPC. We're targeting November for that. So.
Great. Thank you both for your work.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. And just following up on that, you mentioned that you went out to some of the builders, but have you also gone out to those people that are doing renovations in the community who also have to apply for permits?
Through your worship, we didn't go out to builders. We went out to architects and coordinating professionals. This new process is aimed only at complex buildings, so really complex part 3 or part 9 buildings or part 3. So it really is a team of consultants. It's not aimed at sort of single family houses and that side of permit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And will the opportunity for those people to come to the GPC if they so wish, they'll be given the invite to come if they wish to discuss it further?
Sorry, the people being the professionals
Yes.
involved. They'll be aware of the project moving forward.
No, but
the
they'll-
GPC discussion is part of it. It's a development approval process review, but the changes Mr. Moss was speaking to earlier, the application intake enhancements, those are just going to be implemented, and the requirements are going to be updated.
I guess from my perspective, the reason we went to the GPC model was to get more input from the community. So I would like them to have that opportunity to be invited to come so that we can hear direct from them if they so desire. There might be lots that are not interested, but that was the sole purpose of us getting the GPC, was to get more community involvement.
Yeah, sure. Through your worship, again, certainly the folks that are the development community that's providing input into the development approval process review will be aware that it will be proceeding to GPC as well. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Much appreciated. The next presentation is Rob Turnbull, President, Chief Executive Officer of Street to Home Foundation, and Dave Hammond, who we describe tonight as a prominent member of the business community, but I would say much more kindly and generously that he's a prominent contributor to this community through a number of volunteer activities over many years. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Hammond's going to sit in the background.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Rob Turnbull, CEO of Street to Home Foundation, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about Street to Home and a project I'm very passionate about. So Street to Home is a small private sector foundation in Vancouver. We have partnerships with the City of Vancouver, Vancouver Coastal Health, BC Housing, and Vancouver Police Department. So each of those partners has a seat in our board. The remaining 10 seats are recognizable leaders in the private sector. Now, the Street to Home brokers the private sector into taking smart risks in integrating evidence-based models that fill a gap in the current systems. And it's to meet the needs of individuals at risk for or with lived experience of homelessness. Delancey Street is the project I'm going to be speaking to tonight, and it's one of those evidence-based practices. We've just completed 15 years of Street to Home, and we've got a new strategic framework, which is the next 3 to 5 years. If you're interested in downloading it, it gives a lot of our aha moments. What have we learned over those last 15 years? And where are we going to direct our efforts moving forward? It has things such as the Rent Bank, Homeward Bound, which is a project or program that we adapted from the States that when people self-identify, we help them return to a home community if we can verify housing and supports. It has supporting tenants enabling pathways. This is a project that supports people moving from supportive housing into independent housing so you can backfill those really expensive resources when they no longer require those support services. We have Recovery Cafe, Life Intentions Action Planner, Adaptive Therapeutic Communities. You can read about all these innovative approaches. But tonight I want to really focus on Delancey Street. So the Street to Home stool guides everything we do. All decisions we make. The stool shows basically the dimensions that are required to meet every thriving citizen. It's higher up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's a lot of folks who are providing food, laundry, showers, shelters, but these are the types of things people need as they move forward along their preferred life path. It all starts with that comfortable seat, safety and belonging. So, and that's very broad: personal, gender, spiritual, cultural safety, and belonging. Then there's the housing needs, and housing needs are very broad. I mean, we all have shelters and supportive housing, but it's also your addiction treatment. And then there's your medical care, and that's everything from problematic substance use, mental health, physical care, and if you've had any length of time homelessness, you likely have ear, eye, and dental problems as well. Then the fourth leg is really labor market engagement, purposeful activity. Then there's life skills development, high school equivalency, any sort of trades training or job training. And the last issue that comes up quite often is legal issues. So it can be anything from gaining landed immigrant status to getting access to your kids, dealing with your criminal record, that type of thing. So we take one of two approaches at Street to Home. We either take a singular approach and take one aspect of the stool, but it's got to complement, fill a gap and complement other resources that are available in shelters or supportive housing or to people on the street. An example might be employment. The other prong or the other path we take is when we incorporate multiple domains. So it's a holistic. It addresses every component of the stool, and that's Delancey Street. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. Okay, here's Street to Home created a new charitable organization that's going to be known as Delancey Street BC. Here's our purposes. You can see that our focus is on poor, addicted to drugs and alcohol, unemployed, criminals. It's really a residential facility. We're going to teach these folks vocational, interpersonal, social skills. And really, it's all about how do they reintegrate back into society. And so we're looking at models that there's a strong evidence base. And we've shown people that have come from the street and they're gainfully employed and successfully engaged back in society. It's a live-in educational community. That's the best way to frame it. So people get academic, vocational, social skills, but they also get discipline, values, and attitudes that they need to help them move along their preferred life path. You'll see the woman in the picture is Mimi Silbert. She's a criminologist and a psychologist who's the founder of Delancey Street. Mimi describes Delancey Street as Harvard of the underclass. She always slides in, but with a better football team. She says, we work very hard to get the bottom 1 or 2% of the country. Delancey Street has 6 locations. I've been to 4 of them. They're flagships in San Francisco, they're in Los Angeles, they're in North and South Carolina, New Mexico, and New York. So Street to Home has incubated this charity, and we're partnering with Delancey Street in the States, so we'll be the flagship for Canada, and it'll be in BC. And what we've agreed to do as a private sector foundation is we will buy a suitable property, and we'll also provide 3 years of Operation Seed funding. And we know from studying Delancey Street and similar replications that these organizations are sustainable after 2 years. Let me give you a little bit of background on the actual model itself. So it's a highly structured 2 to 4 year living community. And it tends to be attractive to people exiting correctional facilities and people that want to leave life on the streets. People are going to develop life skills, pro-social behaviors. Everybody achieves the high school equivalency. Many people go on and actually, while at Delancey Street, take university courses or trades training. Everybody leaves with 3 marketable skills. The principle underlying Delancey Street is each one, teach one. And I've got a good example. So as you move along and develop skills in Delancey Street, you're going to share those with people who have come in below you. So I was sitting at lunch one day at Delancey Street, and a resident had come in on the Monday, and it was Wednesday. And he said, on Tuesday, they told me I was in charge of this person that just came in, and I just arrived. What can I possibly offer this individual? And they said, you know where you eat, you know where you sleep, you know where the washrooms are, you know the schedule. That all of a sudden empowered that individual. It wasn't long that he was able to start guiding that new person in a mentor relationship. It all comes down to that principle of when A helps B, and the intention is to help B, A gets better. Very powerful principle. I'm going to talk about the vocational training schools. So here's the tagline for Delancey Street. It's a place to learn, lead, and earn. You're going to have people on the street who are running multi-million-dollar corporations. Hard to believe until you go out and visit these organizations. So I'm going to talk about those vocational training schools, but this is one of the reasons that there is no charge to government, no charge to the families, and no charge to the individuals to come through this program. The model sustains itself through goods and services sold through those vocational training schools. Now, vocational training schools are usually designed to meet local needs. So wherever we establish Delancey Street in Vancouver, we'll have to figure out what those local needs are. But I know from the existing sites, there's about 15 different career pathways. And I'm just going to talk briefly about 3. So one is Christmas tree sales. So they sell Christmas trees, wreaths, garlands, but they also make those huge 12-foot Christmas balls you might see on the street in the business district, or the 10-foot toy soldiers or wreaths you might see in corporations. And in each 60 days, every year, they make $7 million US profit. And that's probably their lowest revenue generator, with the exception of their restaurant. They have a restaurant, and it really is a money-losing proposition, but it's more important to give people those life skills. So it's everybody works the restaurant. That's one of, for sure, of your vocational training opportunities. It's important you work the back of the restaurant. Everybody needs to learn to cook for themselves, and you work the front of the restaurant because you have to interact with the public. The challenge is you're always bringing new groups to the restaurant to train. And she encourages people to push back if your meal isn't 110% sort of thing. But it's very rare that a meal does come back because these folks take great pride. If you end up going to San Francisco, you have to eat at the Delancey Street restaurant. I'm not a big fan of sweet potatoes, but they have the best sweet potato pie you have ever tasted. And they're quite proud of it. The third one I'll just mention is their moving company. They are big into moving. They're the largest mover in San Francisco. They've got the most diesel trucks. And everywhere they start a moving company, it usually is the major breadwinner for them as well. This brings us to the bench. I'll tell you a little bit about the Delancey Street bench. It's a famous bench. Basically, anyone who comes into Delancey Street must ask for help. They must make a 2-year minimal commitment. I mean, for those 2 years, they're going to get that, all the vocational training, the life skill development, their clothing, their exposure to the arts, all their food, their residence. They must be willing to accept a very structured environment from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. Everything's very orchestrated, whether it's vocational training or whether it's life skills or whether it's meals together. There's a ton of work done with the judiciary. They work with judges and they work with the courts and with the prosecutors and try to provide a reside option for people to finish their sentences at Delancey Street. And interestingly, many people have returned, not many, some people return to prison because it's an easier life than staying at Delancey Street, because it's so highly structured and you're always held accountable by your peers for your attitude, your work ethic, what you're contributing to the community. So here's where we come to the bench. Anybody can come sit on the bench, and this is if you want to enter Delancey Street. Applicants can come anytime, any day, and you'll be interviewed by members of the community. Now, wherever we decide to build Delancey Street, and we're looking for that suitable property, likely a lot of the folks will come from that homeless community, although people can come to Delancey Street from anywhere across BC. Everything starts with sitting on the bench. So that's Delancey Street in a nutshell. Certainly welcome to entertain any questions you have about Street to Home or Delancey Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perino.
Can't resist. Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you. Thank you very much for the presentation. It's excellent. There is a plan for this Street to Home Delancey Foundation. Am I saying that correctly?
That's right.
In Vancouver, is that correct?
No. It has to be somewhere in BC. What we've done is we've seed funded a new charity.
Okay.
And so it has to be located somewhere in BC. So we're scouring the province to find where is that suitable property.
Okay, so you're thinking obviously of Nanaimo, which is obviously the best place on the planet, but I'm just maybe a bit biased. If you'll pardon my expression, this is so good that I want to grasp onto it and, jump for it. But sometimes, devil's in the details. Is this too good to be true? How do you sustain the costs? How do you do this?
Okay, so what we did, so we're the private sector, and my board is going to want to know that there is an evidence base for this, and so that's one of the reasons we went out to see the sites. There's an organization in Salt Lake City called the Other Side Academy, where 2 graduates from Delancey said, hey, we can do this ourselves. We don't have to be, the 7th Delancey Street site. And they actually host North American Conference of everybody doing this type of work. But every model that they've replicated and put in place is sustainable in 2 years. They tend to focus on catering, moving. It can essentially be anything.
So it's self-sustaining.
Oh, because it's the sale of goods and services through those vocational training schools that makes it so successful. That's right.
But there is a large component of donations, is that correct?
So they have what's called the supply and hustle department.
Okay.
But everyone gets, the guys, it's women involved as well, but the guys all get new suits every Christmas, so they get clothing. Most of the donations either are for upkeep of the property, because trades training is a big one.
Okay.
And these folks maintain the property, and so they may get floor tiles donated, or drywall, or what have you. Clothing, some of the hotel chains make donations, things like that.
Can't wait for the next step. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Is this very similar to the therapeutic community, one that runs similar to the Vulcan in Surrey, or a little bit different?
So I sat on John Vulcan's advisory board. Great model, but it's not integrated necessarily with Fraser Health. And so I guess that's where Street to Home comes to the table. We have built all those relationships, but if it's another community, we know the importance of linking with the police, linking with the city, linking with healthcare, and linking with BC Housing, and in this particular case with the courts. Mimi distinguishes herself from typical therapeutic communities, and she calls it an educational community because it's very different in many ways.
I would see this as a good fit for those exiting the Guthrie program at NCC, which is the only one in the province, which has got a great success rate, if they can continue on with it. So thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for this presentation. I find the model really striking and quite different than what we're used to seeing. I notice I'm on your website, you have all American sites, so you're looking to branch into BC. What is your ask of council?
If there's a property that you think might be a good fit, but also whether the model fits with Nanaimo. We've been looking now for a couple of years for a suitable property, and we have, looked at several other communities. And while council's been supportive, we've had challenges with the properties themselves. We actually bought something in Squamish, and the city wouldn't give up the tourist beds. They said, we're too challenged. If you want to buy a hotel to replace those tourist beds, and then you can certainly run this particular model. Abbotsford, it was, who knew that cities have satellite images, and we went to buy a property, and they showed us how 19 of the structures were on their parkland and been moved beyond the stakes. So they said, well, you can buy it, but then you have to lease that parkland back to us or move the 19 buildings back. So it's been a real challenge to find a property that doesn't have any challenges as far as the city is concerned. And so we're trying to find something that would be zoned appropriately as well. If we're thinking of, perhaps having 40 people and starting with 12, and then getting there and making sure everybody's happy with that. And then you have to decide on what the optimal number of people are. Delancey Street ranges from 60 to 350 people. But council's got to be comfortable with the number of people. The average length of stay, I say, is around 4 years. Some people finish in 2 and want to move on, and they're great. They've got a job, and away they go, sort of thing.
I think you're touching upon something that we see as a challenge in terms of the housing continuum, is that we don't have enough, and so people get stuck where they are, and there isn't an opportunity for them to move on to the next stage, and so it kind of jams up the whole system. So you answered one of my questions about the ratio and the members, the number of people being housed. Have you been in touch with staff? I see you're here with Mr. Hammond. That's a good sign. But have you been in touch with Nanaimo planning staff to look for sites?
I've had a conversation with Bill and with Lisa so far.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Gesselbrock and then Councillor Manley.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just really greatly appreciate the presentation and for bringing this forward. I think, Councillor Armstrong spoke to the Guthrie therapeutic community within the corrections, and then we also have outside the Vancouver Island therapeutic community. And I think it's long been discussed, one of the components that have been in need is the vocational training, and I think it does provide a self-supporting model to run this. And I think we have the need in Nanaimo, and I think that there is the skills to help support getting something like this going, and probably an extremely interested council. And so I think that there is a lot of room for more discussion on this, and I hope people will reach out and follow up on this. So thank you very much for bringing this to us.
Thank you, that's good to hear.
Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I'm a huge supporter of social enterprise, and I've done these kind of employment skills training programs before, but not tied to housing and tied to that whole therapeutic community, and definitely see the value in these kind of programs, and so would welcome it in Nanaimo, and I hope you find the property that you need here, because we need your project here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll try not to gild the lily, but simply say a very sincere thank you to you. The concept has my very strong support. I think there's historical precedent for the success of this approach. It's worked for hundreds of years in various forms. A very wise and outspoken person who worked for the Ministry of Health in a large gathering some years ago, when the minister asked what's the biggest issue facing our healthcare system, and this young fellow spoke up and said alienation. And what this does is address that most directly. People who are alienated from their fellow human beings tend to be unhealthy and unhappy, and this, I think, remedies all of that. So again, I would welcome the opportunity to welcome this proposal to Nanaimo. I sincerely hope you can find appropriate property. So thank you for taking the time tonight and coming here, and thank you to Mr. Hammond, as always, for his contribution to the community. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have committee minutes from the Finance and Audit Committee for receipt. We have no consent items, no delegations unrelated to agenda items. We are on to reports. And the first 12A is the Harewood Centennial Turf Fields Reserve Fund bylaw. Ms. Mercer, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship. With the construction underway on the 2 new turf fields at the Harewood Centennial Park, the city has signed a joint use agreement with the school district for the facility. So the terms of that agreement are that a capital reserve fund be set up for major capital improvements or replacement of components of the facility, west field and or east field. The school district will contribute a minimum of $25,000 annually to the reserve, and as well any surplus from the operation that the city has of the fields will be transferred to the reserve at the end of each year. And as this is a statutory reserve, interest will be earned on it, on the balance each year. So we're looking for first 3 readings to set up this new bylaw, or this new statutory reserve.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Mercer before I ask Councillor Manley to make the recommended motions? Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I literally get asked about this field every single day and when it's going to be open. People are really excited in Harewood. I'm curious about the profits from the field being rolled into the reserve. Is that a process that we employ for all of the other sports fields as well? And is it profitable? Do we build up our reserves well that way?
There, through Your Worship, to Councillor Hemmons, the other turf field, the
Kinnistuck.
Yeah, the one by the, sorry, totally, a name went right out of my head. We have a similar setup with that one as well, where the school district and the city both contribute money and goes into the reserve for replacement. I can't tell you how profitable it will be until we get it underway. As you mentioned, it's just under construction now, so we're not sure what that looks like at this point.
Thank you. And if I may, this might be inappropriate for your department, but is it just the turf fields that we roll the field profits into a reserve for, or is that like a Parks and Rec strategy that we use overall? Sorry to ask that.
Off the top of my head, nothing's coming to mind, but we do have, there are a couple of reserves that are similarly set up, but I'm just struggling but we do have, it's not unusual to have that kind of agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the Harewood Centennial Turf Fields Reserve Fund bylaw 2023, number 7369, pass first reading.
Yes, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that the Harewood Centennial Turf Fields Reserve Fund bylaw 2023, number 7369, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that the Harewood Centennial Turf Fields Reserve Fund bylaw 2023, number 7369, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Ms. Mercer, thank you. The next is the highway closure and dedication removal of a portion of Belidio Road and a portion of Old Victoria Road adjacent to 1044 and 1048 Old Victoria Road, bylaw 2023, number 7367. Long title, Mr. Corson.
Thanks, Your Worship. So this evening we're looking for council approval to enter into a road closure and land exchange. This is a property as identified before it, 1044, 1048 Old Victoria Road. The property is currently being going through the rezoning process to go from single-family residential to high-tech industrial, I3. As part of that rezoning process, there was a requirement for the property to improve the functionality of the property and improve the surrounding street network. And if you look at attachment A, you can see the proposed land exchange where the property is, the functionality of the property is improved. So through this, the city is contributing 170 meters of road, and the owner is dedicating 244 meters of land back to the city. So it's a net positive to the city. We get a better road network. The developer gets a better site. So we're looking for council approval to enter into this agreement, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question through you to Mr. Corson. So it's odd to me that, you know, I'm reading road closure or highway closure, but it's just a very small portion.
Yeah, through Your Worship, Councillor Perino, it is one of those technical terms that gets used. It's, the road is staying open for traffic. This is a road that has excess dedication.
Yes.
That doesn't get used as a road, and so that land is surplus. And
great. Yeah. Good, thank you so much. And I'd be ready to make the motion, the recommendation of the four points.
You can get the first motion, but Councillor Manley gets the second.
All right.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2023, number 7367, to provide highway closure and dedication removal of a portion of Melidio Road and a portion of Old Victoria Road adjacent to 1044 and 1048 Old Victoria Road pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2023, number 7367, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I move that council direct staff to proceed with public notice for the closure and disposition of a portion of Melidio Road and a portion of Old Victoria Road. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but whatever.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 12C, the alternative approval process results. Park dedication bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 7182.01. Ms. Gurry.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report in front of you is simply to provide you with the results of the alternative approval process for park dedication bylaw amendment bylaw 2023, number 7182.01. So as you are aware, an AAP was conducted for the property at Harewood. They also known as the Tuxton Project. My tongue's tied tonight. And we received 20 valid elector response forms in response to that alternative approval process.
Thank you very much. No motions required. On to the item 12D, Covenant Amendment Application number CA 17-6340 McRobb Avenue. Mr. Holm, you're going to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Apologies for that. I thought Ms. Gurry would buy me some more time, but she's very efficient. So we
Doing
have.
my best.
Pardon me?
Doing my best, aren't we all?
Thank you. This is a covenant amendment application, property outlined in red on the screen, and this was a property that was rezoned in 2004. A number of covenants have been put in place and amended over time. It was rezoned to R9, which through limits in covenant also allowed up to a 20-story, two 20-story towers on the property. What's proposed here is an amendment to the covenant to actually reduce that to 6-story form buildings. Currently allowed are 308 units. What's proposed is 266 units. The form proposed, this is in the Woodgrove Secondary Urban Center as well, and would support higher density development. The form proposed 6 stories is more similar, consistent with other developments approved in the area on Clinda and Sentinel, and as well on Uplands. The property is within the Dover Community Association area, and there was consultation with the Community Association through the review of the project. The developer did meet with the Community Association. So what's recommended are covenant amendments to reduce the permitted height effectively from 20 stories to 6 stories. 2 buildings are proposed here as phases 2 and 3 of development on the property. So 20 stories to 6 stories, 308 units to 266 units, and also reductions to setbacks. Currently setbacks of 17 meters are required. What's proposed, more consistent with the form of building, are 7.5 meters setback. So if council were to pass the recommended motion here tonight, this project would move forward to public hearing consistent with council's covenant amendment policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Holm? Everyone's read the material.
Okay.
Councillor Manley.
I move that council direct staff to proceed with a public hearing to consider the proposed covenant amendment.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is a 12E, Development Permit Application Number DP 1291-13, 17, and 21 Halliburton Street. And Mr. Holm again, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moving to a development permit in the South End neighborhood along Halliburton, just south of Cray Street, near the downtown. The properties are being developed as a proposed 5-story building. If you could bring up attachment E, please, it'll give you a sense of the design here. So this is development permit stage, 44 units in 5 stories. Just to highlight that more than half of the units are proposed as 2- and 3-bedroom, which is a nice complement to housing in the area as well. Art Deco design, you can see in the overhead quite a kind of a striking design there, quite interesting. And a proposed height variance from 14 meters to 15.6 meters, relatively minor height variance, currently comprised of a number of properties that would be consolidated if this is approved. And again, 44 units in a 5-story building form for development permit approval. Recommendations from the design panel had been provided and reflected in the proposal. I'm happy to take questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions. Councillor Brown moves the recommended motion. Councillor Armstrong seconds. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 12F, rezoning application number RA 492-607 for Metro Drive. Mr. Holm, again, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Rezoning application on Metro Drive, property outlined in red there, south of Dunbar. This is in city plan. It's designated as residential corridor. The proposed zoning is consistent with that. Core 1 is what's proposed. Obviously, Metro Drive is, the siting of the property is close to Woodgrove Secondary Urban Center, well-serviced, definitely on a very high mobility street, close to schools and all services. So the proposal is consistent with city plan. Recommended to be secured through rezoning our community amenity contribution proposal, consistent with council's community amenity contribution policy. BC step code commitment, consistent with council's policy. Road network concept plan and road reserve covenant are also proposed to be secured. In concept, what's proposed is 30 units. This is rezoning stage, so that is conceptual at this point. All the uses and density provisions within the Core 1 zone would be permitted should council choose to approve this through to adoption of the bylaw. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any. Council's had a chance to review the material. Councillor Manley.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.216 to rezone 6074 Metro Drive from single dwelling residential R1 to residential corridor Core 1 pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None? Motion carried. Sorry, Councillor Armstrong. How could I ignore you? Councillor Armstrong is opposed. Motion carries. Councillor Manley.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.216 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I do have a question to Mr. Holm to help me understand the road covenant. I looked on attachment, I think it was B, and maybe I just needed a magnifying glass, but I was really struggling to understand just what that was intended to do and how it would work. Would you mind explaining it for me?
Yes, I'd be happy to attempt to do that. Thank you, through your worship. If you could bring up attachment B, I'll try and highlight. Thank you. So what you can see is Metro Drive on the left, and then you can see hatched out a roadway. It says Road Reserve Covenant. Faintly, you can see it outlined in red. Thank you. And that would carry through, actually. You can see at the top, it says future lane connection. So there would be a driveway connection from Metro Drive following through the future lane connection, which would head to the north towards Woodgrove Secondary Urban Center, and through another development application that Council's currently considering. It's going through bylaw amendment process as well. There's an outlet to that future lane connection that would take place on Metro Drive near Dunbar. So it creates a redundant parallel laneway parallel to Metro Drive is the idea, to limit the extent of connections on Metro Drive and to provide, those are quite deep lots, and to improve the development potential there and to limit the number of connections on Metro Drive. We're creating a laneway through statutory right-of-way is the intent. Hopefully that helps.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I just want clarification on that. So you're saying that the people may be able to come out to that new road designation and then go out and then exit onto, was it Dunbar or Dunster?
Through your worship, correct. That would be, I'm sorry, we don't have a plan that shows the network as contemplated, but it's going to require connection through adjacent property as well, which hasn't been secured. So this will be through future development. It'll be secured on adjacent property as well.
So would that, we had the previous application on Metro, which I opposed because of the issue coming out. Would that look after that issue then? So that we're not going to clog up Metro so bad in that area?
It creates two exit points for the traffic from those developments on Metro, well separated. One at
Both are
Dunbar.
going to come onto Metro, they're not going to go behind and then come out behind it?
They would both connect to Metro, that's
I
correct.
still remain opposed then, thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Thorpe, Perino, Brown, and Manley. And opposed? Councillor Armstrong. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Councillor Manley.
I move that council direct staff to secure conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2023, number 4500.216, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated 2023, October 16th, should council support the bylaw at third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 12G, rezoning application number RA 461-1100 Cedar Road, 1505 and 1605 Fielding Road, and 1750 Regina Way, bracket Sandstone. Mr. Holm, or is Ms. Rowett going to?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to say just a quick couple of words, and then lucky for you, I'll turn it over to Ms. Rowett. So just briefly, I just wanted to touch on, and I'm respectful of time, but just the significance of this application and the effort that's gone into this. This also follows council's familiar with the Sandstone Master Plan, adoption of the Sandstone Master Plan. This rezoning application is the most significant application that I've been involved in the city of Nanaimo. Obviously, you're going to hear more about it from Ms. Rowett and from the applicant's team as well. But just significant effort through the last, since the adoption of the master plan, the Sandstone Master Plan, significant efforts gone into work in getting this in front of you tonight. And I wanted to say that, Mr. Sims' staff were significantly involved in that. There's a lot of technical review. The applicant's team put significant effort into that, and as well as Ms. Rowett's staff, and it impacted many areas as in the city as well. There's significant consideration and input from Parks, Recreation, and Culture as well. I'll give credit to Mr. Harding, although he's not here to receive it. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight the amount of work that's gone into this, and Ms. Rowett will fill you in on some of the details. Thanks.
Ms. Rowett, good evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to provide a glimpse of the application overview. This application was submitted by KeyCore Consulting Limited on behalf of Seacliff Properties Limited to rezone the subject properties as noted above from Rural Resource AR1 and Parks, Recreation and Culture 1 PRC1 to Steep Slope Residential R10, Highway Industrial I1, Light Industrial I2, and Comprehensive Development District CD13. The proposed zoning would support the long-term build-out of residential, industrial, and mixed-use development as envisioned in the Sandstone Master Plan, which you'll recall was adopted in February of last year. If we could bring up, please, can we bring up attachment A in the report, which just shows the subject property map? Thank you. Just for some quick context here to show where the Sandstone lands are located at the city's southern limits. They border Ardean lands to the south, as well as Ardean landfill on the south side of Cedar Road. And Sinamik First Nation reserve lands are to the east, as well as Cinnabar and Extension neighborhoods to the west, and the Southgate Urban Center to the northwest. And what I'd like to also highlight on the map here, and maybe if we can go to attachment C, it'll give us a better image showing the proposed zoning. This gives us a bit of a glimpse here of the development areas, or DAs, 1 through 6, each of them having a distinct precinct and character and uses envisioned as outlined in the Sandstone Master Plan. And on the zoning map, we have a chance to see the extent of the Sandstone lands. 4 of the properties, and I guess the shading's not shown up here, but development areas 1, 4, 5, and 6 are the lands to be rezoned. The 2 additional properties, development areas 2 and 3, already have industrial zoning. So they are not part of the rezoning application, but they are part of the Sandstone vision for building out. And this map also illustrates some of the significant transportation corridors that relate to the Sandstone lands, including the Island Highway, does change its name further south to Trans-Canada Highway, the Nanaimo Parkway, the Duke Point Highway, Extension Road, and Cedar Road. And I think what you can see here, and as you know throughout the community, and we've heard from much of the neighborhood throughout the OCP amendment process and the rezoning application, is that this is an existing highway corridors, and we are constrained in terms of limited access points, as well as limited or really no, in some areas, no redundancy. So just to highlight that, you can see that these lands are affected by some of the challenges of mobility in the area. And that was a large consideration throughout the application review. As part of the comprehensive review, the application was referred to a number of provincial and regional agencies, including the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure, RDN, and BC Transit, and the school district as well. Staff worked with the applicant and agencies to provide a coordinated technical review, and a number of technical studies were also submitted in support of the application to understand the potential impacts of development on servicing and utilities, parks and environmental impacts, and transportation, to name a few. Collectively, these studies demonstrated feasibility to support the proposed land use and density. And where development constraints were identified, it was determined that through a master development agreement would be secured as a condition of rezoning, and that would ensure that the necessary improvements as well as community amenities would be provided at the appropriate stage of development in the future. Staff are recommending support of the rezoning application and the proposed mitigation measures to be secured as they align with the Sandstone Master Plan. They also reinforce the goals and objectives of City Plan, and as well as our regional growth strategy in terms of development within our urban containment boundary. I'm happy to answer any other questions if you have from the report, and I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. Any questions? If not, Ms. Gurry, the delegation, because it's here on behalf of the owners, are they entitled to 10 minutes tonight or just 5? 5 only.
Yeah, they have 5, Your Worship, and then when and if this goes to public hearing, they'll have the longer time for the applicant.
All right, we have a delegation, Georgia Desjardins and Tanisha Evertsy. I can't remember. Evert? Thank you, Evertsy. KeyCorp Consulting on behalf of Seacliff Properties. Good evening and welcome. You'll have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you've got a minute.
I'll fly through.
To go that far.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is George Desjardins, and I'm with the Director of Development with Seacliff Properties, the owner of Sandstone. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're on the traditional ancestral territory of the Nanaimo First Nation, and to personally thank Chief Wise and his council for the ongoing partnership and all of the great work we have and are yet to do together. I've had the great pleasure, most of the time at least, of overseeing this incredible project for a number of years now, and I'm here to speak to you about our rezoning application. Also presenting is Tanisha Everts, and we have a number of members of our consulting team from KeyCorp Consulting, Watt Consulting, traffic engineers, and Newcastle Engineering, civil engineers here, in case there are any questions we can help answer. I also would like to pause and just thank city staff. As Mr. Holm expressed, this is a large and complex project, and one that we and staff have been working tirelessly on for a number of years now. And I just want to express my sincere gratitude to the entire team, because it's truly been a collective effort to get to this point. So just moving on to the next slide. So the Sandstone lands encompass a total area of just over 700 acres at the southernmost boundary of the city of Nanaimo. Seacliff acquired the property in 2018, though Sandstone has long been envisioned for development prior to our acquisition, with numerous iterations of plans for the property being presented and updated over time as the financial, environmental, and development landscape has evolved. Years of public input ultimately influenced those iterations of the plans, and Seacliff has continued in that spirit, working closely with the city, key stakeholders like the Chase River Community Association and the Nanaimo First Nation to inform the plans as they sit today. As far as the planning framework is concerned, which has ultimately informed this rezoning application, there's a couple of different components, being the city's OCP and the Sandstone Master Plan. So the City of Nanaimo's OCP, referred to as City Plan, was just recently adopted in 2022, as I know you're well aware, and provides strategic direction for the coming 25 years. As it relates to Sandstone, it contemplates 4 different land use designations, being neighborhood, neighborhood center, light industrial, and industrial. The Sandstone Master Plan was also recently updated and adopted and forms part of the City Plan as Appendix F. Master plans are a tool to manage change and provide more detailed policy directions for future land use and development in a specific area of the city. And ahead of you on the screen are just some of the key metrics and caps the Sandstone Master Plan includes. So I just want to reiterate that the rezoning is being done in order to align the underlying zones with the master plan, ultimately allowing us to deliver on the vision as set out in the OCP. So I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Tanisha here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Georgia. My name is Tanisha. I'm a planner and have been working on this Sandstone project for a number of years, so I'll just jump right in. So approximately 263 acres of the Sandstone lands are actually not part of the rezoning application. So on this map, those areas are shaded in light gray and include Development Area 2, Development Area 3, and portions of land that have been set out for Snuneymuxw First Nation in the Mutual Benefit Agreement. Development Areas 2 and 3 are already zoned for a variety of industrial uses. The development areas with color are part of the rezoning. So Area 1 is a residential zone, steep slope residential, R10. Area 4 is a split between highway industrial, I1, and light industrial, I2. Area 5 is a new city center zone called CD13, and Area 6 is also steep slope residential. So both the Cedar Road neighborhood and Cinnabar Valley neighborhoods will have the steep slope residential R10 zoning. This will allow up to 600 units total, comprised of 1 and 2 family houses and townhouses. It's a continuance of the existing neighborhood form. The Fielding Neighborhood Center is a new CD zone, and as proposed, it will allow a mixed-use high street, standalone commercial, and multi-housing in townhouse, apartment, or condo form. In this neighborhood, there's also a land dedication to the city of 2.5 acres.
And 1 minute.
The Sandstone Master Plan limits building heights in that area to 6 stories and allows for multimodal transportation as well as like a new urban center. The big move in the Sandstone Master Plan was a change from regional commercial to light industrial, as well as a reduction in residential units. So only the light industrial portion of Sandstone is part of the rezoning application. Uniquely to that zone, we're allowing up to 10% of the permitted density to be standalone 6-story office to create a better variety and better employment node east of the highway. So demand for industrial land in the city of Nanaimo, we're running out of time, is high, and Sandstone brings online about 6 years of industrial supply. I'm going to be quick for the rest, I promise. So just quickly, as mentioned in the staff report, a variety of technical servicing studies were completed in support of the rezoning. This slide indicates some of the major infrastructure improvements that will be required in conjunction with the development. And touching on parks, about 1/3 of the Sandstone lands, or over 200 acres shown in green here, are going to become park. They'll be comprised of a combo of nature, community, and city.
Okay, I've given you extra time because of the problem with the slides at the beginning, so if you could wrap up really quickly now.
Yes. So a huge component of Sandstone for the past 4 years has been traffic analysis and traffic centers. So as shown here, there are a variety of mitigation measures that were identified, and we have worked closely with the city staff and MODI on the ongoing planning and implementation of these. And it will require ongoing coordination and collaboration between all of the parties. So ultimately, this mitigation package being provided by Sandstone reflects an estimated $70 million investment in the city of Nanaimo's network, and has been shaped by a TIA, ongoing negotiations, and considerable community engagement.
Thank you.
I think the staff report covers off
I will
the
leave it there.
balance of it. So.
Thank you very, very much. Any questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Pardon me, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. Question through you. A comment, first of all, I attended one of your open houses back in March, And I was really impressed with not only the presentation, but the incredible questions, and it was a very positive environment, so well done. My question for you is, there's a lot to see. What do you see as the phase-in approach? What would you phase in first and so forth?
Through your worship to Councillor Perino, thank you. With these large-scale, long-term projects, setting in stone a phasing plan is a very difficult thing to do because it's critically important to stay nimble, to be able to adapt to changing market conditions over time. With that said, I think Seacliff is keenly aware of the strong demand and strong need for both housing and industrial. So I think at this point in time, we see a concurrent approach, starting off with both residential development likely on the west side, which would also concurrently trigger significant off-site infrastructure upgrades to the transportation network in the Chase River neighborhood, and at the same time likely commencing in some of the industrial development lands in either development area 2 or 3.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions. Thank you very much for the presentation. Councillor Manley, please.
Thank you. I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 45, am I on the right one here? Yes. 215 to rezone 1100 Cedar Road, 1505 and 1605 Fielding Road, and 1750 Regina Way from Rural Resource AR1 and Parks, Recreation and Culture 1 PRC 1 to Steep Slope Residential R10, Highway Industrial I1, Light Industrial I2, and Comprehensive Development District Zone 13, CD 13, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Those opposed? Councillors Gesselbrock and Brown. Motion carries. Thank you.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.215 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Councillors Gesselbrock and Brown. Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Manley.
I move that council direct staff to secure the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.215 as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated 2023 September 25th, should council support the bylaw at third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? And those opposed? Councillors Gesselbrock and Brown. Motion carries. Thank you. We're on to bylaws. Zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2022, number 4500.204. We do have correspondence from Deputy Minister Tom McCarthy, re-council's consideration of rezoning application number RA 475. And correspondence dated October 16th from Jeff Plant, Gall, Legg, Grant, Zwack, LLP, rezoning application number RA 475. Council, there are 3 possibilities by way of motions. One that we defer, another that it be adopted, and the third that it be denied. Councillor Manley?
Hang on, conflict.
Sorry. Oh yes, sorry, Councillor Eastmere has to leave, conflict of interest. Thank you, sorry.
Your Worship, I move that we defer consideration of zoning amendment bylaw number 2022, number 4500.204 to rezone 444, 450, 500 Comox Road, 55 Mill Street, and 1 Terminal Avenue from medium-density residential R8 and Gateway DT12 to Comprehensive Development District Zone 7 CD7, and to amend the CD7 zone with new zoning regulations to facilitate a mixed-use development and subdivision, to the 2023 December 4th council meeting, and that council authorize Mayor Krog to write to the relevant provincial ministers to seek an update on the progress and timelines of the facilitation between the applicant, Snuneymuxw, and the province.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. I want to make a couple of comments before anyone else speaks. As I've made council and the public aware, shortly before this application was before us last time, we received a letter from Deputy Minister McCarthy of the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, asking us to defer consideration while facilitators engaged by the province attempted to resolve Snuneymuxw First Nations opposition to this development. We have received, as indicated in the correspondence tonight, an update from Deputy Minister McCarthy suggesting that another deferral would be prudent in the circumstances. We've also received correspondence from the applicant stating that it expects its application to be approved. I want to emphasize that leaving aside this process, Council has full discretion to make a decision with respect to the application and is not bound to any outcome. In this circumstance, I am certainly in favor of a short deferral until December 14th for the purpose of seeking clarification from the province on the status of the facilitation process, which I think is important for the community as a whole. Having said that, Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship, I just want clarification that the motion is for the December 4th meeting, deferral to December 4th, not the 14th.
Yes.
Just for clarification, thank you.
December 4th, sorry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is Land Use Contract Discharge Bylaw 2022, number 7355. And again, this all relates to the same property. And there are the three possibilities. A motion to defer. Councillor Eastmere, sorry. We're in and out. Or that it be adopted or that it be denied. Councillor Manley.
I move that council defer consideration of land use contract discharge bylaw 2022 number 7355 to discharge an existing land use contract from the property title of 500 Comox Road to the 2023 December 4th council meeting.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 13C. Zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2022 number 4500.205 respecting Metro Drive. It's Councillor Manley.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2022 number 4500.205 to rezone 4645 and 5655, 5657 Metro Drive from single dwelling residential R1 and duplex residential R4 to low density residential R6 with site specific provisions to increase the maximum allowable floor area ratio to 0.75 and increase the maximum principal building height to 13 meters be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.208. Councillor Manley.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.208 to rezone 6030 Pine Ridge Crescent from single dwelling residential R1 to 3 and 4 unit residential R5 be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is building bylaw amendment bylaw 2023 number 7224.05. Councillor Manley.
I move that building bylaw amendment bylaw 2023 number 7224.05 to introduce zero carbon step code and revise BC Energy Step Code regulations be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. Discussion from anyone? Councillor Brown.
Your Worship, at the third reading discussion, I made a flippant comment that this was a very easy decision, or the easiest decision in the world. I just want to apologize for that comment. Didn't come out as how I intended, and I understand that these decisions do have very real-world impacts for people. With that said, I haven't changed my vote, but I just wanted to apologize for that remark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I wasn't present for the vote, but I am going to state that I won't be supporting this. A couple of basic reasons. I think it's appropriate that the province set the mandate in terms of the timing of this. I don't think it is appropriate for this community to try and get ahead of where the province has set the time limit, if you will. And I do want to note something. Saanich municipality, which in fact has supported something similar, has, as I understand it, 16,848 residential gas connections and 961 commercial connections. Saanich has approximately, I believe it's 25 or 30% more population than the city of Nanaimo. The city of Nanaimo has 19,272 residential connections and 1,717 commercial connections, which tells me quite simply that this community supports the use of natural gas. And I think there are times when you support what your community has demonstrated are their views on this subject. So on that basis, and without belaboring this, I appreciate the passion that this issue has brought to the community, but I'm also satisfied that in the great scheme of things, what we do here one way or the other without the province moving lockstep is not going to make much difference other than exacerbate the debate which exists within this community. And I will leave it at that. And I see, of course, I've inspired Councillor Gesselbrock to say something. So, Councillor Gesselbrock, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm 100% confident in moving ahead with this bylaw and the timeline proposed. We set emission targets in 2010, and we have actually increased our emissions since that. And the reasoning, it's actually even increased quicker than population growth, and it is from an increasing move to switch to natural gas. And I think that if we are going to take our fair share of responsibility on reducing our emissions, that we have to implement something like this at the very least to stop adding new emissions to meet the targets. So I think that this is a small step that we're taking, but I think that it is quite symbolic. So further ado, call the vote.
Thank you. All those in favor, if there's no further discussion? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Brown and Manley, and those opposed. Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Thorpe, pardon me, Mayor Krogh. Mayor Thorpe, you're a good guy. Councillor Thorpe and Councillor Perino. Thank you. Motion carries.
Moving on up, Ian.
Anyone's welcome to become Chief of the Complaints Department. The next is F, Municipal Highway Naming, Loretta Lane, Bylaw 2023, number 7366. Councillor Manley.
I move that Municipal Highway Naming Loretta Lane Bylaw 2023, number 7366, to provide for the naming of a municipal highway be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And finally, Property Tax Exemption Bylaw 2023, number 7368.
I move that Property Tax Exemption Bylaw 2023, number 7368, a bylaw to exempt certain land and building from taxation, be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have no notices of motion, but we do have other business. And that is 4 pieces of correspondence. Ms. Gurry, your advice on how to deal with these, please?
Thanks, Your Worship. So some of these, I think, may require a decision from Council on whether or not to provide letters of support. For example, item A, correspondence, dated September 29th, 2023, from Keith Wilson, Nanaimo Youth Services Association. They are requesting a support for the Nanaimo Foundry location. That is something that I believe would require a motion from Council to send a letter of support for that matter. As well, the item B was asking for a letter of support from Council. However, the deadline for that that matter has passed, so that might be a moot point, and by it being on your agenda, receiving it as you have already received it, would be fine. Item C is a letter of support for Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society. As it is on the agenda, a motion providing your support to write a letter of support for that would be warranted. And finally, the last one, again, is asking for a letter of support. And as it's on the agenda, if you would wish to send that letter of support, a motion would probably be required for that, or is required at this point for this as well. But having said all of this, with this correspondence arising and coming on the agenda, it has brought attention to the need for a potential possible council policy around correspondence, and when the need to come to a council meeting for those approval for letters of support, and when possibly there's criteria around letters that don't need to come here to be discussed at the table would be warranted. So I have a motion to suggest that you could consider after this correspondence is dealt with, if you'd like to do it that way.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown, and then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to move that a letter of support be provided for the Nanaimo Youth Services Association for the support for the Nanaimo Found relocation.
Second, Councillor Perino. My understanding is there are no competing applications in any event, so we avoid any real problems that might otherwise arise. So unless people are anxious to debate, all those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. B, as has been pointed out, is, how shall I say, functus with respect to support for the Central Vancouver Island Multicultural Society. Moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion on that one? All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And the final one is the correspondence from Maryland St. Clair Discovery Community College, Rediscovery Community College Healthcare Assistant Program. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. I suspect we have nothing on question period, Ms. Gurry. Thank you very much. Notwithstanding, it's before 9 o'clock. It seems like it's been a very long day. Councillor Armstrong very kindly moves adjournment. Councillor Hemmens seconds. All those in... Oh, yes, sorry, Ms. Gurry. Don't let me rush past the potential motion. What do we want to do about correspondence, folks?
Yes, so if you haven't already made the motion to adjourn, well, voted on it completely with a pause to that, if you wanted to consider a motion that council directs staff to draft a policy for council's consideration with respect to council's, with respect to council correspondence and responses to correspondence that are received by mayor and/or mayor and council.
That sounds like an excellent motion. I see Councillor Manley is enthusiastically seconding it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. That carries. And as I say, no question period. Now we're moving for adjournment. Councillor Armstrong, which is seconded by Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed?